Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all to the May 2nd Finance hearing. Before we get into it, if the clerk could please call the roll.
Councilor King. Councilor Vaughn.
Present.
Councilor Finn.
Present.
Councilor Hughes. Councilor Forrest.
Present.
Councilor Leeang.
Present.
Councilor Palmucci. Chairman Paul.
Present.
Councilor Harris is here too.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Councilor Harris.
Get used to the new rotation and the new technology for that matter. It looks great. Before we begin, I'd like to just read the open meeting law, which is as follows. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. So we have before us this evening Council Order 2016-094. I'm anticipating turning this meeting over to Joe Shea Jr., who, Mayor Coe. Before Joe Shea. Good evening, Mayor. Busy night for you today.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I will be turning it over to Joe Shea, but I just wanted to give some opening remarks regarding this project. Many of you are familiar with the area. North Quincy High School has been around for a long time. The annex was done in the 70s. The street was taken, a number of homes were done at that time. The annex was taken. Many would argue at the time they didn't do enough. It was kind of sandwiched into that location for decades. As you know, we came before this body some 2 years ago to address some of those challenges. I had a call and a visit from some North Quincy High folks, and I'm sure she wouldn't be embarrassed if I used your name, Ms. Sherry Manning, who's the head of the boosters at the North Quincy High Football Club and a very active North Quincy resident. And she came up to see me a few years ago and said, Mayor, I'm looking for fairness for North Quincy High. I said, well, Sherry, let's talk about that. Articulate that. What do you mean by that? And then she alluded to the number of improvements we're making around the city. She alluded to the improvements at Quincy High, well overdue improvements that bring to Quincy High about $100 million. She alluded to the track. She alluded to the park with the removal of the old Quincy High School. And she alluded to a number of projects around the city. She says, I really believe that the North Quincy area needs some attention, particularly around the high school and around the sports at the high school and the youth programs. We said, Sherry, why don't you give us a chance to take a whack at that? And when we came before you 2 years ago, we put before you a comprehensive program that would address some of those challenges. Now, the land behind the school, which was commonly known as Teal Field, is Park Hill. Mr. Cassani is here, our park director. We engaged Whitton and Curran, and we went through a process to identify improvements to that area. Hunt Street, as you all probably remember, very, very dense, very, very tight. We had a field in the back there that was reclaimed after the old Teal building was taken down back in the days of the expansion of the school before the annex was built. So we put before you a program that we indicated, and you approved about $12 million in bond authorization. At the time, I thought if the numbers were good, we'd be back before you to reduce the bond, hopefully, and use the proceed with Central Middle School to do that. That did not occur. This project became a little more complicated. That area, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Kendall Street, Hunt Street, Young Street, it's literally a bowl. That whole area drains out under Hancock Street over to the marshes in Montclair, eventually out to the Neponset River. And a number of those neighborhoods have experienced flooding issues for many, many years. So in the process of moving forward with the design and engineering, a number of things were uncovered and things were dealt with. Sewer issues, water issues, drainage issues. So it's truly a civil engineering project, not just a construction of a synthetic turf field. And that project obviously is being overseen by Woodard and Curran. We have great confidence in that firm, namely because Joe Shea is a remarkable engineer and does great work in that effort. So Joe's going to walk through the issues. There are three major issues that led to this. One is the houses were more expensive than we first estimated. It would have been cheaper for us to go eminent domain. We did not want to do that. I don't think this body had the appetite to do that. And when I say this body, I know a number of you were not here at the time. So we went forward with true negotiations. Every house was negotiated on, prices agreed upon. So that budget is up about $1 million from what we anticipated. Item two was the construction costs. You know, you go back 2.5 years, and then you project things, and of course, the market is pretty busy out there with contractors, with the economy being pretty brisk right now. So that number came in higher than anticipated. And the last one was not anticipated when we first came before you, and that was the question of utilities on Hunt Street. We're digging the road up, we're dealing with water issues, we're dealing with sewer issues. Actually, the poles all fell over at one point a few months back, and we thought maybe it's time to look at putting all the utilities underground, and then it gives a true campus feel between the school and the field out in the back that will be constructed. So those are the three main items. Mr. Shea can go into any of those areas in more detail, but I felt where I'd be here tonight, I thought I should be here for this because this was a project we put forward, we advocated for, and I'd be happy to take any questions after Joe's presentation on this. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and we appreciate your tenacity on this project. Before we get into the actual program with Mr. Shea, I just want to kind of touch on the numbers again, just so I make sure that I'm clear about it. The original intention was essentially a $12 million bond authorization. That would be less than anticipated at the time. Anticipated sale of Central Middle School, which I think we're earmarking right about $3 million, and that would have been roughly a $9 million or so bond authorization, correct?
That's correct. Still would have been a $12 million project, but we would have bonded the 9.
Correct. So essentially now we're talking about a $12 million project if consent is given.
You're still talking about a $12 million project from the original sense, but tonight's request is for $2.7 million, so it becomes a $14.7 million project.
Correct. But the bond authorization would essentially be for 12.
Bond continues as 12. That doesn't change because you've already authorized that. Tonight's request is that you approve the $2.7 million out of the sale of Central Middle School to take care of the shortfall.
But initially, the sale of Central Middle School was to subtract out of the 12 for the bond.
That was the intention initially, correct?
So there is disparity there. I just want to be clear.
Oh, I'm absolutely clear.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Right.
There's no, there's nothing hidden here.
Oh, no.
This is pretty straightforward.
Nor are we suggesting that there is. I just, again, before we get into the presentation, I think it's just important to level set and understand the economics behind the project. No one's questioning the tenacity to put it forward for sure. But as you know, this is a finance committee meeting, and we're going to go through the numbers. So with that, I invite Mr. Shea, Senior Vice President of Woodward Curran. Mr. Shea, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Councilman. As the mayor established, tonight's discussion is regarding funding request of Council Order 2016-94. It's a $2.7 million request for three primary activities or cost categories that were discussed. I'm going to take a step back briefly to go over the past 2.5 years, just to get oriented, and then go into detail on these three items. All of you have in front of you a timeline that began with the rollout of the concept in November 2013 at North Quincy High School. That's when the project was initially announced. It was announced as a $12 million project at that point. And we've worked diligently since that day to stay on that $12 million level. As the mayor indicated, the project has evolved since that time. One of the items we'll talk about tonight, the undergrounding of the electric utilities for $1.2 million. That was part of an example of the evolution that was not originally anticipated, therefore it was not originally in the project budget. One way to think about it is if we had anticipated undergrounding the electrical system in November 2015, we would have started at $13.2 million. This is a rather dense slide, not meant to go through each item, but it gives you a sense of all of the steps that have been taken as we've proceeded through this project. The original $12 million project request, this is a slide from November of 2013, focused on the parking, the connectivity to the school bus drop-off, the redesign and consolidation of the drainage system, and as the mayor had indicated, a large part of this project deals with stormwater management and drainage management. It is a whole. Those streets are going to have improvements to their drainage system. The whole area behind the high school will have significant improvements as part of this project. It's not just a synthetic turf field, there's quite a bit of preparation. For anybody who has been out there, knows there's been a massive amount of earthwork underway for quite a while. Here's the original concept rendering of the 157 space parking lot. By way of orientation, North Quincy High School would be off the bottom of the screen. You can just see the corner of the gymnasium that is on the street, the arch through the bottom of the screen. Newbury on the right, Kendall on the top, Chrysler on the left side, and Hancock Street would be off the left side of the screen. Those two areas shaded in light blue are retention basins. We're actually trying to drive and control the stormwater ponding on the project for the whole neighborhood into these two basins, which then, as the mayor indicated, flow out under Hancock Street, under the North Quincy MBTA parking lot, into Sagamore Creek and out to the pond. This slide was the original conceptual cost range that was used for the $12 million appropriation. The project began in November 2013, but the approval was in June 2014. It was Council Order 2014-108.
Mr. Shedd, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you mind just speaking in the microphone?
Yes.
People, it's not picking you up totally.
Pardon me. Thank you.
Thank you.
This slide is the original slide that was used when we came before the council in April of 2014 that identified the $12 million total program costs. This amount was approved in Council Order 2014-108. We had bundled the project into these major categories. And I want to draw your attention to the $3.5 to $4 million purchase of the 9 homes category. We'll be returning to that with the actual costs a little bit later in tonight's presentation. Where we are today is we have done a significant amount of preliminary work, obviously acquired the homes and cleared them. We've cleared the property and done some freeloading, an activity very common to make sure that the earth is properly settled for the athletic fields. Those of you familiar with the very successful Faxon Field project, may recall the freeloading of that field for several months before that track and field went. We received bids in March, and an $8.37 million bid was received from West Construction in Massachusetts. All of the bids we felt were very competitive. However, components of the bid, namely the earthwork component, were higher than anticipated. I will speak about that. There is a $1.5 million cost for city purchased amenities. Christopher Cassani's department will be purchasing some of the equipment and has made some purchases already such that there is uniformity amongst the parks and recreation equipment used by the city. So based upon today's forecasts with actual bids in hand, the forecast to complete is $9.9 million. There's a $7.15 million remaining appropriation from the original 12. That means the homes have been paid out, much of the earthwork has been paid out, the engineering and permitting components have been paid. So we're here tonight to talk about the $2.75 million requested appropriation from the proceeds of the sale of the Central Middle School. The current status of the project is that West Construction has been authorized to proceed on moving the earth. So those of you who have seen it, they're out moving the preloaded earth onto the parking lot site, and they have been authorized to start work only for items that have received funding. We've set up a number of meetings with them to continue to refine costs and also make sure that the sequencing of the project meets the city schedule. Moving into the detail of the $2.75 million request. $1.2 million of that is for electrical system changes. In my mind, this is the cleanest component. The original project concept did not anticipate undergrounding the electrical system on Hunt Street, so it was not in the original budget. Now, as the mayor had indicated, with the water and sewer changes in the neighborhood that have been added to the project, with the roadway being wide open, we are recommending that the electrical system be placed underground. You'll notice in the summary of electrical costs, we have the third line down is actually the contractor's proposed cost to underground the electrical system and add transformers. $711,000 is that unique line item. But it's not just the contractor's work. There are end-grid fees and costs. There is telecommunications up on those power poles that needs to be put under. And those power poles carry the street lights. Some of them wash the rear of North Quincy High School. Some of them are the street lights for Hunt Street, so those would need to be replaced. So all of the individual electrical costs rounded up $10,000 to $1.2 million. To orient, I've got some slides of the electrical system. Everything you see on these poles on Hunt Street basically needs to be put under the ground. As a civil engineer, I do wish it was as simple as just putting conduit in the ground and pulling wires through it. When you look at the photo on the left, you see 3 transformers. Those are those trash barrel-sized cylinders up on the poles. Those are going to be repositioned near the Goals building as we proceed. You'll also notice some of the floodlights and power lights, street lights, excuse me. And then you'll also notice these rectangular boxes on the back of the pole, and those are linked to the cable television system. So part of this undergrounding is moving all of those wires and everything you see on poles either underground or onto transformer pads along Hunt Street and along the project. The other part of undergrounding the electrical system is making sure that we maintain connectivity to all of the houses. This photo on the right is an example of one of the houses. We need to make sure that when we're done, this still works. We won't be cleaning it up on the face of the house. However, 4 separate electrical feeds, several data feeds, not sure how many telephone and cable feeds. Part of this process is to make sure that people won't receive interruption when their current service continues as everything comes off the poles and moves underground. So within your presentation, we do a hard copy for anybody who needs it. There's 8 or 9 item breakdown of the electrical costs, a total of $1.2 million. The next next category in the $2.75 million request is $550,000 for additional earthwork. This one is very straightforward, in that we prepared an engineer's cost estimate of how much the earthwork is going to cost to move those piles, compact the earth, and the bids came in higher. It's a very straightforward apples to apples comparison. In reviewing it with our cost estimators and our engineering staff, to be quite direct and straightforward, we didn't feel it was as costly to reuse and move all of that earth out on the site. However, from the 3 bidders who submitted bids, it was very clear that our estimate on that component was about $500,000 short when we did it in the fall of 2013. So those are very detailed actual costs, detailed actual breakdown of the dozens of earthwork pay items we would like to go through. But we are working with the contractor to look for opportunities to value engineer, find ways that they can move the earth that delivers the same product at the end of the project, but saves funds for the city along the way to try to reduce that deficit. One example, because there's a lot of discussion about this, is using the different earth pile system. The sections of that component, sections of the city that infrastructure needs to be on piles, which helps items from settling. So we've got detailed information on that for anybody on the council who would like to see it.
Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, just clarification.
What was it that you just said that you have hard copies available for?
The contractor's bids
Right.
of all of the individual bid items, which are.
Well, if you go back to the previous slide, I guess the thing I'd be interested in is that do you have any hard documentation regarding this about value engineering review?
That is currently underway.
Well, why would we be back before us now, looking for certain amounts of money when we weren't be able to gauge it perhaps by some of the outcomes or results in relation to the so-called value engineering?
We're back now because we know the value engineering we expect to save, we would like to save $300,000 to $400,000 overall. However, the project as currently conceived needs more than just $300,000 to $400,000.
I understand that part of it, but it just strikes me that wouldn't it be better for us, before we turn this into a liability for the taxpayers of Quincy, also to have some senses in terms of what those real things that could potentially be driving down these costs?
I can understand that, and we want to talk this with Crystal County and Mayor to make sure that they're comfortable as we proceed, because the contractor is underway with only items that have been authorized. Eventually, we're going to hit the point where they will be doing some earthwork that we need to make sure we have authorization to do.
Right.
Whereas the electrical system is easy, whether you want to do it or not. The earthwork is only, I understand your point.
Well, I would think, again, given the disconnect between some of the original estimates and what the actual costs were, it would seem to me to make some sense that for us, in terms of voting, because again, I don't think there's anybody here, I mean, this has to get done, right? We need to do that, but to the extent that there's some evidence or some suggestion that making attempts to drive down those costs would be kind of beneficial to us in terms of making judgments as we move forward. Just as often we're thinking. I would like to say that, Mr. Chairman, it's great to see any of these proposed value engineering reviews that are done. I think that should be shared with the chairman of finance. It's a critical part of an ongoing process.
We would be happy to do that.
And I agree with the council. I believe, speaking for myself, that we had thought of the expectation would have all the information relative to this project in our hands good, bad, or indifferent leading up to this hearing. But Joe's right. Some of the parts of the whole, so, particularly if there's a cost overrun, I feel like you almost want to run to the microphone and say, wait, here's an opportunity to essentially drive that number down.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, the dollar amount before you tonight is to complete the project with respect to the addition of the electrical. If we are successful, some of those value engineering, and those are the major decisions, because value engineering has an effect on the quality of the project. So if some of that occurs, you can easily come back to this body and reduce the request or rescind part of the request for those numbers. We'd be happy to do that.
I mean, again, I think I'm just speaking for where we were in 2014 when we learned about the project. Now we're here, we're just trying to connect all parts.
Fully understand.
Of the conversation.
Sure.
Yeah. Joe, did you have more to go? Or?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to, I'm all set.
For those of you who haven't been out there to see the earthwork that's underway, just brought 2 slides with some photos of the work. The concept on earthwork was to preload with a material that is being used in the final product, in the final field. That product is expensive, so it's going to be moved around and broadcast throughout the site. So it'll be several more weeks of heavy earthwork. The final component of the $2.75 million request is $1 million for the property acquisition. There was a $4 million budget set for property acquisition. The final expenditures on property acquisition is $5,014,000 and change. That created at the time that used the available project contingency, the $14 million appropriation. Now that we are back for an additional appropriation, we're looking to use that, get that money back to complete the project based upon the forecast. So originally, the $4 million budget to negotiate the cost of purchasing all the houses and relocation, final cost, the very exact number that's up on the screen. So in summary, those are the 3 main categories of costs. To expand the cost 2.75, as the mayor indicated, the proceeds from the $3 million sale of the Central Middle School. I'd be happy to entertain any questions at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Great presentation. This is an exciting project for my women, without a doubt. And I like the fact, I know there's issues with the overruns, but the fact that we're not skipping is important. I hear the quality. I hear the $1.2 million that's spent on improving the electrical and all the surrounding issues that the money we're spending today, I feel, and I don't know if you'd agree with me, may be cheaper than what we'd be spending down the line if we were to do that work and had to not fix what you uncovered. Am I correct?
Right.
Yes. Very good. But this is a very important, it's going to put a new face on North Quincy. The people in North Quincy, I know, are excited. As the mayor had mentioned, it'll give us a campus atmosphere, something that is very important to my ward, to North Quincy High School, and I appreciate all the work that we've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will say is, although I do hail from the Quincy High School, home of the presidents, as a former high school athlete, you visit a lot of these schools and the communities, and when my kids are playing sports, you go to a lot of other schools, and it was embarrassing to be, well, let me rephrase, the conditions of when you'd be hosting that and what you were dealing with, like, say, for example, the old Quincy High Girls Gym. It was embarrassing. You'd go to these schools down in the Cape and they would have first-class facilities. I have to say, when the mayor first presented this project to me, I thought, what a vision and an opportunity for a first-class facility, the city of Quincy. The project's expensive. Capital improvement projects always are. But not only are they going to pay dividends for our athletes of today, they'll pay dividends for our athletes of tomorrow, and a great space for our community to be proud of. What I think is important in this project when we talk numbers, and Joe, this is you and I's favorite topic, is most people see houses coming down and a field and parking lot going up. And you and I are tuned in to the point of the stormwater improvements it's made to an entire neighborhood. You know, this isn't a coastal project, there are flood control projects done throughout the city. So I think that's really important to talk about how we've been able to invest in our infrastructure and make improvements in the floodplain. What a positive to come out in partnership with this project. I guess on that, I just am curious, I'm going off on a tangent, but as we're making floodplain improvements like this capital improvement projects, and I know we have you teed up for another meeting with the community rating systems, do these get factored in what the community is doing and the value that they're investing to make improvements in that area?
It does. In the community rating system, any large-scale flood protection project does give you points. Also, the removal of repeat loss flood damaged homes from the floodplain gives you points.
In our repetitive loss area?
That is correct. I don't know if these homes have filed, the homes that were taken. They were definitely in the floodplain. I do not know if they filed for, they have repetitive loss status.
Whether these specific houses within areas have repetitive loss. So what I thought was interesting is I also serve on the Affordable Housing Trust, and this project is actually simulated some private development. So the city purchased 9 of the homes, then did the city sell off some parcel or a portion of our parcel to stimulate private development abutting on River Ave?
I do not believe the city sold off any. I know the city did not sell off any property. We worked very closely with a redevelopment proposal on Newbury Ave, so the 2 projects from Harmony. But none of the land that was negotiated for purchase for the 9 homes has been sold to development.
Oh, I thought there was a portion of the city land, no? Okay. But I will say there was a really, how about, my other question was some of the infrastructure work that you're referencing. We're seeing new development in that area proposed, whether it be MBTA lot or the Newbury project that we're talking about. Does any of these infrastructure improvements benefit the opportunity for development in the area? So if you could just speak to that, because I think what people don't understand, myself the at-home viewer, that as project properties are zoned and the opportunity to improve them, if the infrastructure is there, not there on the city end, we talk about water and sewer improvements, or the conduit work for our utilities like National Grid, Comcast, then building cannot happen in that area because we don't have the infrastructure to support it. So it sounds like, I guess I was really surprised by the delta of the price change, and yet as I'm looking at it, what's the ancillary benefits? And I thought that might be something to attribute to.
You look at the more global sense, you're under the renewal of this section of North Quincy, the intersection improvements at East and West Swan and North Quincy. So the development that's going in there, this project to actually make a cohesive campus behind North Quincy High School. A number of the proposals that will be coming for the North Quincy High School area from an infrastructure engineering standpoint. The water main improvements, the sewer improvements, and absolutely the drainage system improvements. That coming through the North Quincy High School, North Quincy MBTA project extend well out down to Welcome Young, extend well down towards Atlantic Middle School. The infrastructure flows through the heart of this area in North Quincy. And that improves development, that improves services, that certainly improves sewer system, for example, removes possible backups, which is a residential and commercial nuisance. There has been a renewal there both under the ground and underground.
And was this part of the NEPA filing?
This project is not.
And I guess what at this point is looking for a timeline for completion? When are we planning to start?
An athletic field,
You're right.
playable early this fall. The mayor is pushing us very hard for September.
Okay.
And the parking lot will be done by Thanksgiving. It's going to be a two-phase approval. We're also looking to do all of the Hunt Street utility work in July and August while school is out. So that road is back in order and available for normal vehicular traffic when September school starts.
It's always been very tight to do drop off to the gym side of the high school, so I appreciate that. And I guess I was just curious, back to the numbers. It was a $12 million project initially. It initially planned for a $1 million contingency. At this point, we're looking at an additional 2.75. We talked about value engineering. It felt like a kid asking dad, hey, can I have $30? And then not hoping dad doesn't ask for the change back. I just, are we planning this 2.75? Are we planning contingency in this, or is it a little further enough? Is there a contingency there, plus opportunity value engineering, or are we far enough along in the project that these are hard numbers ready to go to contract and we're not worried about that at this point?
These are hard numbers based upon bids ready to go to contract. 2.75 will give us a small contingency that if we value engineer a successful amount, will increase that contingency. Never recommend entering a construction project with no contingency. We are digging in the ground and dealing with unforeseen conditions. But we're keeping the pressure on ourselves also. We're depending on ourselves that we need to get this job done. We need to make this time for scheduling and another schedule. Move forward with this.
I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear it looks like there'll be playing some false points out there. Quincy absolutely deserves a campus as strong as Quincy, and we both have now two high school campuses to be so proud of this community. So thank you. Great job. Great project.
Thank you, Councilor Forrest, and just to kind of interject, because I heard the sentiment shared here today. I don't think anybody believes that this is nothing but a good project, good for the district, to win in that capacity. Where I'm coming from, and I'll turn it over to Noel, is the budgeting, the economics of it. So I'll get back to that. I want to yield to Councilor Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jill, you're talking about November 2013. I remember being on the Park and Recreation Board with Mr. Casani behind you and being on the school committee for the last 2 years and going over this project for Teal Field. It's been talked about over the last few years. So I do know a little bit of background on this, but I did not have to vote for the city council in 2014. Basically what this really is all about and is the vision of the mayor saying, listen, we need to equalize the North Quincy side of the city, the high schools. Just a little review here, the 2010 is a brand new facility in Quincy High School, a brand new track right next door to it, and new green space in the Cottington building. So reamped almost like a little college campus over there in that section of the city, which is walking distance to Veterans Memorial Stadium. On the north side of the city, luckily the MSBA is coming from reimbursements on the windows, so it looks like a brand new facility over there on the outside. On the front side of the street, we've widened East Swanham Street in Hancock, widened that area to make a little bit more traffic flow. And the vision is to put, this Teal Field on the back end on Hunt Street and to give availability for parking spaces and getting that traffic flow to kind of center off of Hancock Street onto Hunt Street. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and the vision is not just for the field, it also is for the parking part of the component of this, which is then down Hunt Street. It's very congested, or in case it was congested with now the opening of that area. Looking at the vision for the athletics, just having the equal opportunity to be able to walk out of your high school and not have to go over to a Kavanaugh Field with the new Joe Koch athletic, the middle school there, Atlantic Middle School, the new field is there. Also, just to elaborate on this, it's not just for the high school and the kids that go there, it's also for the youth programs. The Quincy Youth Soccer, the Quincy Youth Lacrosse teams that we need to get a little bit more participation in and have some type of feeder system over there. I had a couple of questions just about, and I'll elaborate a little bit more, is, we just got this balance sheet here, and we're getting ready to do the vote, we get the balance sheet. In my personal opinion, could we get something over the course of a monthly balance sheet to see how the status is of this project? Is that something you can do on June 1st, July 1st, August 1st, September 1st? Just to see where we are with what's going on, if this is going to get passed tonight?
Yes, Council.
Because I think that would be important for us to be kind of in the loop of where we're at. Are we on budget? Are we off budget? Let me ask you another question. Could you by any chance get this done, let's just say we allocated or amended and made $1.75 million? Could that be done with $1 million less of appropriation of money?
It would be difficult at this point. At $1.75 million, the earthwork component is very difficult to switch. Moving into construction without replenishing some of the contingency, the homes that used up, those may be low numbers that have to come back before you again. And that we're comfortable and confident that it's inserted. We need to hold an inserted question schedule to be able to do 2.75. On the electrical components, it has become our very strong recommendation now that we're doing water, sewer, drain, and on street. To move all those components on the side underneath the street and to add transformers and switchgear, really completely improves. The component that would be segregatable, which would be the electrical component, really would leave you with 9/10 of the project at this point. And it would be very obvious.
Who is doing the electrical work? Is this National Grid?
National Grid is the utility, and we have the contractors quote to do the construction. National Grid has a component that is pulling wires and rewiring lines, plus some fees for their design, but most of the cost is the contractors.
The only reason why I asked for $1 million decrease is you originally had the 9 houses for $4 million, and it's basically comes out an average of $444,000 per unit, per house. And if you do the numbers, it's at $557,205. There's a kind of a big spike there in each house that was sold on those 9 houses, with $1 million over. And then on top of that, there's also 49,000 provided services, residential relocation services and assistance with displaced residents. So there was a lot of investment into these 9 houses and displacement. Did you by any chance have an oversight that it was just not going to be the proposed 444,000 that you proposed for this?
I want to take a shot at that because Joe was not really involved in the housing part of it. That's the solicitor handling negotiations on that. And estimates were made based on, what the assessments and appraisals are done. A number of those homes were multis, so there were apartments in those, so tenants had to be relocated in that. So, the number came in higher than we anticipated, but when you look at the overall picture, I think it was the right reaction for local government to be. We did not want to get down the road of eminent domain. We would take the home for less than what it's worth and then fight in court for a true value 3-4 years down the road. We didn't want to put anybody through that, individual homeowners, and for that matter, on the city side. I think it's important to remember that I know that we have some overage here. Quincy High School was brought in under budget on time. Central Middle School under budget on time. All those window projects that were talked about were approved under budget. The unknown sometimes complicates a project, and these things occur. We had that occur on this building because of the unknowns, and we dealt with that. So this doesn't happen too often. And when I get into the capital improvement program with you folks, I'm going to talk about some of those things going forward and how we manage them.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, I'd just like to talk a little bit about our debt service. Last year's numbers were at $15.5 million, and we're going to appropriate another $12 million on this one. It's $2.75 million more than we would have done. I think we just need to have a little bit better oversight coming into the next few years here, but in the next year, on our long-term and short-term debt, which is a very important component of the city.
Well, as we get into the budget process and as we get into the capital program we're going to talk about tonight, we can talk in more detail on that. But the average city across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the debt ratio is 8%. We're at 5.3. we have plenty of room in debt service. And it's always a balance. We're always trying to strike the balance. We're an old city. We have a lot of infrastructure needs. We've been dealing with that over the last several years. And there's more need out there. And the other argument, again, we can get into it later, but you asked the question, is now interest rates are low. Now is the time to make investments in capital projects. It makes perfect sense. And, we're the custodians, the mayor, the school committee of all the public assets. And if we don't maintain them properly, the old saying, you pay now, you pay later, you're going to pay a lot more later. And so I appreciate the comments. Certainly I look forward to working with the body as we deliberate on these future projects.
Thank you, Mayor. And lastly, the 2.75, it's 23% over. It's hard for me to take the punch. That's a big punch. It's 23% more. I think there's so many different things that we can do with $2.75 million. And the one thing that really strikes out at me, and this is what we can work on in the future, is coming from the school committee up here, we've been fighting for funds for the dyslexic children and a lot of the reading disabilities we have in children. And I can't imagine how many doors I've knocked on where this is a topic that comes up all the time. And, I think at 2.75, we could have made a classroom of 20 classrooms and 4 offices to 6 offices on the bottom floor. And this would have been a perfect opportunity to do that. And how you fund it is you get the other towns and cities around you, like the Branches and the Weymouths and the Hingham's and the Miltons. And instead of us sending our kids to the Landmark Center over in Beverly or the Carroll School in Lincoln, these kids could have an opportunity here in the city of Quincy, as well as the neighboring towns and cities will be paying us for the transportation that we're paying to go to these other towns and cities as well. So it's something that's been in my mind and I've talked a little bit about before, but I think it's something that we could do with 2.75.
Well, respectfully, let me say this. I don't like to put program against program, project against project. I don't think that gets us anywhere. This school system we have, we've had it for a couple of years. And there's been some stories of some neighboring communities about the school systems in the last few nights. We do it very, very well in Quincy. And we treat every family and every child with great respect and with great response to those individual needs. I think we do it very, very well. It is a balance, and the other part of that, a lot of work would have to be done on what you're proposing, but you're talking about an increase in the budget. This is a debt service item. This doesn't increase personal services, expenses, or contractual lines in any way. So I don't want to fog it up a little bit here tonight. I think that if you want to speak project against another project, I think it's a little more fair. This is a project, not a program. And I'm glad to sit down with you and anybody, as you know, council, to talk about some of those other issues.
But just to put it in a nutshell, I'm going to support this $2.75 million increase to this budget because I think it's so important for these kids at this side of the city. There's a bigger vision in this, and I'm going to support it. Thank you very much, Mayor.
I had one comment on that because I didn't want to make it to North Quincy, but I thought to talk about the balance. But the reality is it also helps Quincy because the stadium is now freed up for more practice sessions for Quincy High's athletes. And not only the males, but under Title IX, we have a lot more girls' sports going on in our system. And so this will allow us to do that and then frees up time for youth sports, as you mentioned. So
thank you so much.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Council. Mayor, one moment, if you don't mind, Councilman, I'm going to swing it over to you. I just want to do a time check with everyone. We're at 7:20. We're going to have to make a decision because 7:30 is coming, so we can either continue this, you can open up the regular meeting, or bring it out towards the end. We'll talk about that after. But I just have one question for you. You speak about the property acquisition, which I understand, and I heard you allude to the fact that it is historical interest rate environment, which they will be going up. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But the other side of that is when we were purchasing houses into a market cycle that was very rich to sell its market, correct? So you were.
That market's only getting richer.
Agree to that 100%. But just in terms of the evolution of the project management cycle, if I have a home project and I'm spending $12 million on, my acquisition cost is $1 million higher for, in this case, houses. I would think that economics would say I have to find a way to work within that $12 million budget and something's going to have to be cut. Maybe I'm wrong, but that is the only question, yes.
Well, my answer to that is we'll be before you tonight for a request for $2.7 million so that we can get the project done in completion. I do not want to look back and say we cut corners, we made a mistake, we didn't do the quality. So, you know, these are real numbers now. Where we went in for the authorization for the 12 million, everything was estimates. These are real numbers, the construction numbers, the bids come in higher, the houses have been purchased, those numbers are real. And we have a real number for the electrical, which we did not even anticipate, as you know, when it came before this board back in 2014, so.
I mean, the way I interpret that, when we were presented with this project in 2014, was here's a $12 million project, not a $12 million project plus 23%.
You can look at things a lot of ways, Council. I mean, the city of Quincy went through, before your time, before we went through it in Quincy High School. You know, the original plan was 90% reimbursement. That didn't happen. It's a $100 million high school based on a 63% reimbursement. We didn't change the plans on the high school based on the numbers change. That's a debate this body certainly didn't have and deliberate.
I respect your role, your position as a leader, but again, it brings back to basic budgetary economics, and that's just where I'm coming from, and I'll continue my sequence of questions. But with the last 7 minutes in the first go-round, Council Finn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I get that seat? As a proud resident of Ward 6, I appreciate a great deal of what the focus has, particularly around that area around the high school. And certainly I have a deep appreciation for the concerns of the parents, and being myself one such parent in that high school. And so, again, the whole point here is that not a question of what we support or what we don't support, but I think that it's very important that everyone understand that not everyone across the city shares necessarily the enthusiasm for that project, quite honestly. And back in 2014, some of us, quite honestly, really climbed out on a limb, given the way, I think honestly, sometimes the way the project perhaps was misrepresented in the public forum, but at the same point in time, nonetheless, in supporting it, we climbed out on a limb. And so, as we go through this particular process this evening, it's very clear to me, going on 8+ years with our current mayor here, he doesn't need another set of cheerleaders in relation to this. But he needs the function of the city council as we move forward to ensure that, one, such expenditures are scrutinized, and secondly, that it is moving forward as a city. And I see that that's what our basic role is. And I think that sometimes there's just certain questions that emerge, and depending on the level of communication that goes back and forth between the mayor's office and this body, can do nothing but create perhaps some additional confusion. But Joe, the one thing, for example, from my perspective, is just the utility issue that we're discussing. And I understand that there was a decision made at some point that it was going to change up. What was the initial projection for utility costs as part of the original project?
Utility costs focus primarily on the drainage components.
No, I'm not talking about the electrical component per se. What was projected initially?
I don't have the detail, but it was on the magnitude of about $200,000 to bring a service into the field for the lights in the comfort station.
And that's one of the things that went terribly awry here.
We've changed from just bringing an electrical service into the field to digging underground conduits, moving transformers, making switchgear.
Now,
The field does not use significantly more power than the 9 houses.
one of the things that the Munis indicates is that it indicated that there was an electrical study by National Grid for the tune of about $7,000.
Correct.
Was that group, was that to make these recommendations moving forward when that $7,000 was spent?
That $7,000 did 2 things. One is design a new electrical system on the poles to feed the field. And then with some remaining money in there, N-Grid did their design work.
So essentially that was for the original budget, not the new budget, or the proposed increase in costs that was this point.
that 7,000 is one of the line items that will be spent.
And is there additional costs associated now with the study moving forward to determine what they're going to do?
It's in the end grid as a fee for all of the remaining work. From the utility, that's a $302,000 line item. That's in the $1.2 million.
Okay, now here's the other issue or question, I guess, that I'd ask, is that as the auditor has gone through, and perhaps through you, Mr. Chairman, the auditor, Munis currently does not reflect any costs related to utility changes or to National Grid. At this point, is that accurate? Aside from the study?
The only thing that I was showing was the study of $7,000.
So I guess the question I have, in terms of moving forward with this work, have there already been, has work commenced in the sense that have we already encumbered certain expenses related to those costs?
Not related to N-Grid or the electric system, only $7,000 spent.
And what about these conduits and different things that we're talking about, they're adapted to that? Have those things already are in play presently?
Those have not been installed, we received contracted bid prices to install them, but they have not been authorized to do that.
Are those bids final? I mean, do we have some sense of the true cost of all those
We
things?
do.
And do we have hard copies related to those bids and all?
Yes.
And the final question, Mr. Chair, I'm not certain that you can answer this question, but again, we're talking about the costs related to the actual purchase of the property. I don't know if it's solicitor or the mayor, but this comes back. Again, I'm clearly on record that would not want to have seen those taken by eminent domain. But I guess the question it comes back to is a question I've asked here before that I wonder about, and that's again related to Section 30 of our city charter. And essentially, what that says, whenever the price proposed to be paid for land for any municipal purpose is more than 25% higher than its average assessed valuation during the previous 3 years, the land shall not be purchased, but shall be taken as aforesaid. Which is, I understand that, and I might be missing it, but that's around trying to control costs related to certain things, right? Because eminent domain doesn't mean necessarily going to pay lower, per se, but it ensures that there's some of the process rather than a simple unilateral one. So I guess the question I would have for the solicitor, this trustee negotiating, did we meet that in terms of, did we pay anything that was 25% higher than the average assessed valuation?
Well, what we paid and what came out of the acquisition funding pool was what's called relocation costs.
No, I'm not talking about I'm just talking straight up from the purchase of.
Well, I'll have to review that. I would have been happy to answer that question tonight. I believe the answer is no, but I'll confirm, because that was something we checked.
Okay, that was, the only reason I'm asking it now is because that was one of the questions that we had asked at the beginning, so I would like.
Well, we went through the taking procedure in the sense that we got appraisals done, independent appraisals. As you know, sometimes the municipal assessment process doesn't track the current market. We had to react to the market at the time.
No, I appreciate that, I understand.
Well, if I
that.
can just finish what I'm saying,
Okay.
it would be very helpful to everybody. Okay?
Excuse my being rude.
At the time we were doing the takings, and they were all so-called, you know, they were more negotiations than takings. We never came in front of the council. At the time we were doing them, the market in North Quincy for 2 families, and there were, I believe, 4 of those, had really accelerated, so we were reacting to that. But the big issue here was the relocation expense. That's why the number that we're seeing for total acquisition cost appears higher than perhaps that 25% margin you're concerned about. I'm happy to confirm that all the acquisitions were within that window, and believe that I will be, but I just have to confirm it.
Well, I would, again, because that is the issue I'm concerned with. I think the relocation costs are reasonable. And I think you attempted to make prior to all of that some estimates to what those costs might be. Again, the reasoning behind our charter, in my understanding, it doesn't reference relocation costs. It's talking about what's reported in munis, which is the purchase sale of the various properties. And I think that the reason it's there is, from my understanding, is that it does go significantly. It doesn't, again, know what the market rate is. It's talking about our tax appraisals, is what, as I read it, as I understand it. But again, it's the check and balance of being able to come back, as difficult as takings might be for us, to raise questions that are associated with costs that are going out. So I would appreciate very much if you could see if that wore out.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's prompting the question, frankly. I thought it was that the gross amount turned out to be higher for acquisition. So I'm just trying to be clear that the acquisition funds that we used covered both the charter provision, which is that Chapter 30 provision, which is the cost of acquiring the fee in the property. But then on top of that, we were paying relocation. And in several instances, we paid to relocate 2 occupants of the property. It was 1 owner, but 2 occupants because it was rental. And that's where the unexpected expense came from, frankly. We acquired 9 properties, but we relocated, I believe, 15 families at considerable expense. And that's where where the money came from, the differential. That was unanticipated at the time the budget was set.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Madam Auditor, very quickly.
Council, we're coming up against the numbers, so I don't want to rush your sequence of questions.
This will be my last question, but I just want to make certain. The munis system, when it records these expenses, it clearly designates between what were real estate purchases of real property, and what were specifically relocation costs, does it not?
I believe it does, Council.
So again, just simply what's motivating the question, again, isn't any lack of conviction in terms of the value of this project, which I supported back in 2014, and spent 6 months justifying door-to-door at different points. But it does speak carefully as to what the checks and balances between City Council and the executive branch are. And that, again, part of the surprise might be for us if there was an overrun in terms of what you estimated in terms of purchases. And then secondly, if those had exceeded that 25% marker, then it probably would have made sense to be back before this body to move forward. And that's just the point that I'm trying to make in relation to it. But between you and the auditor, if we can get that information, I'd appreciate it, because I honestly don't know the answer to that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you and ladies for all of your content here. What we're going to do is we're going to break from committee, we'll go into our regular meeting, and then at the tail end of our regular meeting, we'll bring this issue out of committee. So here, I declare this part of Finance Committee closed.